Welcome, 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 everyone, back to the Black Girl Encourage Her. I know this is the Black Girl Encourage Her, but for this month, I want to talk to men. And we are going to be talking about men's mental health because I believe as women, I think we get so caught up and so focused on us, which is not a bad thing, but we do want to hear what's going on the other side. We want to hear what our counterparts are up to and what they're dealing with as well. So, I've got a very special guest that I am going to bring to the stage. I can sit here and I can hype him up because I love him oh so much. Let me bring to the stage my nephew in love. Everyone, please say hello to Raekwon. Hey.
Hey, how y'all doing? How you doing?
I am well. Thank you so much for joining me on today to have this conversation about the importance of mental health, but in particularly about men's mental health. So
Definitely.
please introduce yourself to the people.
Well, how you doing, people? I'm Raekwon Lloyd. As she said, I'm her niece's husband. So it's kind of been a newfound relationship, but I'm very excited to be able to talk about men's mental health because it's something that I feel like doesn't get a chance to get highlighted the way it should. So I'm just excited to be here, and I appreciate you
Yes,
for having me.
absolutely. Family is family. So let's get it started. Let's talk a little bit about, well, could you say that you've had your own mental health journey? What does
Oh,
that look like?
definitely. I will say this. With me transitioning to being a younger adult, I think the older I get, the more I learn you really have to grow up. And I think it's natural to have a journey of just trying to figure out how to have your mind and your heart cooperate with each other as you get older.
Mhm.
Because naturally, a lot of us, we grew up having people that took all of the hits for us. Like my mother, she took a lot of the blows when I grew up and I didn't have to understand. But
Mhm.
since I've been 18, I've been taking care of myself. And it's definitely been a journey just understanding how to be a man, especially growing up without a father. So I had to learn everything on my own.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. And it is so key that you said growing up you had someone taking the blows for you. And I think especially when you're a mom raising young men as I have, they don't really understand. So it's kind of good to hear you say, oh, wait a second, now that you've become, once you turned 18, it was a different journey for you. And so now you're walking this path as a young man, having to deal with life
Yes.
where once you were shielded from it all. So what has that journey been like? You said you lived life without your father. What has that journey done to you mentally speaking?
uh, to be honest, I think becoming an adult, I feel like I wasn't equipped. Like
Mm,
growing up without a father, I talked to Kayla a lot and I talked to a lot of people about how it seems to kind of be an attack on keeping fathers out of the home and like kind
mhm,
of highlighting that you don't need them there. But the
mhm.
importance of having a good father is more important than any of us could explain. I think it teaches young men to have structure. I think it teaches you emotional control, confidence. And that's a lot of things that I had to grow up without. Like being
Mm,
raised around women, I won't say coddled because it was rough, but I wasn't taught how to delegate my emotions and know that there's a time and place for everything. So as
mm,
I got older, I think it kind of added to me becoming depressed and having a lot of levels of anxiety because I didn't know how to deal with what I was feeling or quite how to explain what it was. I think kind of being a man, you're just raised to be mad and then happy sometimes. There's never really names to show like I'm feeling anxious or I'm having
mhm.
feelings of depression or I'm just having an off day. It's just either good or horrible.
Wow. Wow. And it's good to hear from the other side of the spectrum. So, I mean, there were so many good points as far as what you said, but of course my mind goes into my children. So
Right.
now I'm hearing you say this and I'm like, Because as a mom, I always want to prepare my young men to face the world.
Right.
But I do feel as though I could only do but so much. So
Yes.
as a woman, there was only so much that I could do. And their father needed to play the role that he needed to play.
Yes.
Now, am I going to say whether he did what he did what he knew to do based off of how he was raised? Because my children's father grew up without his father.
Exactly.
So when divorce hits and now he's separated, I'm using those terms very world like, he was
Yeah.
separated from his children. He might have, and I probably should call him up and see if he'd get on here and talk to us instead of me, formulating these thoughts on my own. But now I'm really thinking about it, what that could have done, like the breakup of the marriage, him being separated from his children,
Yes.
where that took his mind, and how it could have just reverted him back to, well, I never saw my father, and I only saw my father on occasion. So that's a hit to a man, period.
Yes.
But I loved how you just shared that so eloquently, like you felt like not having the father in the home, like it didn't prepare you for life as you see it. So now you're learning on the fly. So you have to learn things, and learn how to deal with your emotions now on your own, and you've got to just base it off of wherever you can, like, so whoever you can see, whoever you can gain influence from, you're basing it off of that. So how would you say that you handle these emotions? So now you said you've experienced some things. Now that you have a label to it, it's called anxiety, it's called depression. How have you handled it, whether it was right or wrong in your opinion, but just how have you handled the weight of those emotions?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, I think I went through phases with that as well.
Hmm.
when I so originally I'm from Philadelphia, and when I turned 18, I got a scholarship to move out to Harrisburg to study biology. So when I came out here originally, I was on my own, obviously, for the very first time. My mother doesn't have any other children, so it was always just me and her.
Hmm.
So it was one of those things that when I came out here, I had a plan of being able to focus on school and get us in a better position. But God has a funny way of showing you and humbling you in life. So when I got out here, my mother lost her job. And right after that, she lost her house. So she had to move in with a guy that she was dealing with at the time. And originally, the plan was while I was focusing on school, she was going to financially support me. But obviously, that changed. So I had
Hmm.
to start working and doing like a lot of extra shifts, which means I started to slack on school because I had to be able to send money back home to my mother.
Hmm.
And to be honest, what I mean when I say I went through phases was at that time being stressed, 18, being on my own for the first time, I started doing drugs and stuff because I thought that's what the people around me were doing.
Yep.
And paying attention to negative influences, it just kind of felt like an escape route in a very quick way.
Hmm.
But as I got older, fast forward to like when the pandemic started, I started to look into therapy more often. As you know, Black people aren't necessarily encouraged to feel confident talking to strangers about their business. But
Right.
I got to a point where I was at basically my melting point. And I was
Yeah.
like, if I don't find a way to talk to somebody about this now, I got an airy feeling that I won't be here much longer to
Hmm.
be able to talk to anybody. So I made the decision to look into therapy, and that's what I've been doing the last few years.
That's wonderful. Therapy is essential. And I think a lot of people have a negative, like it's a negative stereotype about therapy. Oh, you must be crazy. You need a therapist. You must be crazy. And you must be crazy not to have a therapist.
Literally, life is heavy.
It is.
Life is heavy.
And a stranger sometimes is the best person to bounce those thoughts, those feelings, because they come in hopefully equipped to handle whatever it is that you are going to share. And it's like a hashtag no judgment zone. And you
Literally,
literally get to share. Unlike if you were speaking to a family member, it may come back up. like years later, months later, you're having a now disagreement, and all of a sudden something you said in confidence now comes up. So that there's that possibility that that could happen. But when you go to therapy, and I think the key is people need to find the right therapist.
I completely agree. I think it's okay to not have chemistry with the first person you choose.
Hmm.
And to
Hmm.
your point, there's nothing like having an unbiased party that can give you advice. When you're
Yeah.
dealing with people that you know and love, it's in their nature to want to protect you. So they'll tell you whatever they think will make you feel better. You need somebody to tell you if you're messing up as well. That's why having accountability partners is so serious, especially now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people really get the gist of it. They
I
don't
agree.
get the gist of the importance of it. And like I said, life is heavy. All of our thoughts, our emotions based off of our experiences, things that happen. It's heavy. It's a
Yeah.
lot for one to have to bear. But I do want to go back. You made a comment, and again, forgive me. I'm all in my mommy zone. Like you're really bringing that out, but it's a good thing for me because it almost feels like therapy for me, because now my mind is opening up. Now I'm getting an awakening of a different side. And so now I'm able to approach my own children in a different way.
Right.
But you said something very key that I can't let go of. And you mentioned at 18 years old, you're now away from your mom, and you're now being, focusing on your schoolwork and everything. And she was supposed to hold it down financially. And then, everything started happening with her, and that situation changed. And now you had to flip the script. You had to now start working. And you said so that you can send money back home.
Yeah.
Who told you that was your responsibility?
Uh, um, I guess the cliche answer would be my heart did. And
Hmm.
the reason why I say that is because to kind of backtrack and bring it all full circle, my mother had me very young. She was a teenager. So my grandmother raised me for the first 14 years of my life. And then when she passed, my mother took on the torch. And from high school to college, we were like this.
Hmm.
So it was one of those things where I was raised to understand that so many people have to go without experiencing the love of having good parents around them. And regardless of all of my mother's shortcomings, she did whatever she could to make sure I was taken care of. So,
Hmm.
in the very least, when I knew she was going through something, it's my job to be there for you. I think every son experiences that feeling because innately, it's a circle of life. They take care of you, and at one point, you have to take care of them.
Hmm.
And it's always going to be just me and her. Like I said, I don't have siblings,
Yeah.
so I always look at it as though if she doesn't have, who take care of her if it's not me? It was
Yeah.
kind of it was a weight, but I know it was important that I always put that first because all we got is each other.
Yeah. But see, the key here is, and that's why I asked you that question. And I know it might have sounded kind of sideways, um, but even without a father in the home,
Yeah,
you still learned that I am the provider mentality,
definitely.
right? So sometimes we think we're lacking, but in essence, we're really not lacking. We just had to learn it in a different way. So when some people go to school, they have one teacher in the classroom and it's a bunch of kids. Some people go to school, they got two teachers in the classroom and there's a little bit of kids. So, some people have one-on-one. Some people are at home with their parents getting taught. So we have to break the mold that says that learning takes place one way.
I
And
agree.
so and I just wanted to highlight that you still learned the attributes of what a man, in my opinion, I'm not gonna put that
Yeah,
on everybody, but that's according to like my definition of what a man is to do. It's to be the protector, is to be the provider.
I
And
agree.
even without a father in the home, even with being raised by your grandparents, your grandmother, you still learned those key values.
Definitely. And I think you just said the best point. I say that all of the time. The best thing my parents have ever taught me is through their mistakes.
Mhm.
I've learned what I don't want out of my life, and I feel like that's what I've been able to apply. It's just been that simple. I think
Yeah.
we kind of get to a point where you get too old to blame your parents for you continuing to be problematic. So I just
Right.
took what I learned from their mistakes and did better.
And like you mentioned, there was a choice.
It
So
is.
when you were brand spanking new into adulthood, you was feeling yourself. You're like, okay, well, what we doing out here in the street?
Yeah.
Oh, you doing this? Well, let me try it. So you were influenced by that. But thanks be to God, like there was a light bulb moment that went off where you said, you know what? There's probably a different route that might yield different results. And this route's not really getting me anywhere. Right. In fact, it was probably pushing you even more into depression, even more so into anxiety, and you get deeper into a hole. And now it's like, how do I come out of that?
Right.
So I think that that's what's happening to the younger generation is that there's still that influence, that same influence that we were worried about in my generation. That influence is still there. But sometimes that influence can be from the parent role. It could be our mistakes. Like you said, you literally learned from the mistakes.
Right.
And it can still either swing one or two ways, either for
Definitely.
the good or for the bad. Right. But thanks be unto God, it seems as though you're gaining it and you're taking the momentum to go for the good without the hurt, without the pain, without harboring, oh, I hate my dad, I hate my mom, because of this, that, and the other. It's like you're learning the lessons, but you're learning it with a level of love, with a level of understanding. And shout out to your mom for raising you in this manner. She may not have felt like she was equipped, but she definitely did what she could with what
Exactly.
she had. And it boils down to capacity. That's what I always say. It boils down to capacity. Not everybody has the same capacity,
That is so true. That is so true.
right? So that's good. That's good. So help us understand the younger generation because
Uh,
all we see, they walking around with these hoodies. It's hot outside. They got these hoodies on. They in the room. They ostracized. Help us walk into the minds of these young people. What would you say to and my audience? We older. We're not that much older
I
than
know.
y'all.
I know
We just
you.
a little bit older. But help us to understand what's going on in today's society.
Um. Okay. So I guess the best way to kind of approach that would be to come from a place of kind of leveling. I think something that a lot of the older generation has issues with understanding is the fact that just because times have changed doesn't mean that life got easier.
Mm,
And that's like one of those, what I mean by that is when I'm trying to use a good example, when like my parents were very young, cell phones weren't a thing.
mhm,
Obviously, social media wasn't a thing. It wasn't crazy TV going on. Everything was more wholesome that was presented to you. I think nowadays there's more pressure coming from more places and it adds on stress because nowadays with social media, everything that people highlight is the best parts of their life. It's literally highlights.
mhm.
So people get ostracized for either having a difference of opinion or not dressing a certain way, not looking a certain way. And people will always say you shouldn't be bothered by outside influences, but we got to understand that, like you said, not everybody has the same capacity.
Yeah.
It takes a level of confidence to be able to differentiate yourself and be like, well, I am who I am and I'm okay with that. That's not easy. A lot of our parents struggle with that now. And I think the bottom line, when I try to level with older people, the reason why I don't get mad at parents is because I've come to understand that they're humans first.
Mhm.
Before they were our parents, they got their own issues that they're dealing with. So when I
Yeah.
explain what I'm going through, they might not understand, but I can't judge you for that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have the youth that we have the pressure of feeling like we have to be successful on a timeline of what's presented to us.
Hmm.
And when you're not doing as well as what you think your counterparts are doing, it weighs on you and it makes you feel as though you don't have a purpose in this world. But I think that's the biggest issue, just getting caught up in paying attention to what people want you to see rather than what it honestly is.
Hmm.
It just really adds on to any insecurities that you already have.
Wow.
So that's the way I would look at it. The pressures are different, but it's just as bad. They
Yeah.
got more of a grip on us mentally than they used to physically. You don't have to be in jail to be in prison nowadays.
Right.
It's very different.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
hope that answered
That
your
hit.
question.
That hit. That
Okay,
really did hit. That was really so profound. And such a young man. My goodness.
that's you.
But it was so profound, and I agree that like as a parent, we think life should be easier for
Yeah,
you because that's where we've worked. We've worked now as a parent to give you all of the best things. You've got everything that you need. You got the iPhones, you got this, that, and the other. Like, because we've provided that. So we think that life is supposed to be different for you,
right.
but it's still life. It's still life just the same, and you still are going through, like, so the same pressures, the same worries, they're still there, they're just in a different form.
I completely agree.
So
And
my generation, we had actually physical bullies, like they was in your face on the
yeah,
playground. Now the bullies are through words, cyber bullies.
you just said something that I wanted to touch on before I forgot it.
Yes.
I think the most interesting part about that is I'm trying to think of how I want to say it. It's like it's very easy to, like I said, get caught up in what everybody else is doing. Because nowadays, compared to what was going on back in the day, when I had conversations as a kid with my grandmother, there wasn't many things that black people were able to do.
Hmm.
You either were a masterful athlete or you worked in a factory.
Yeah.
It wasn't many options. So to look now, there's so many ways to make money these days. You could do anything. But there's an issue with that as well because when you have too many options, you can get analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
When there's too many outlets that you can focus on, it's easy to feel depressed because you can't make a decision.
Hmm.
Trying to find a good fit for what fits your personality and what fits uh, your values and your goals for you and your family, or now me and my wife. The decisions have to be different, but you get stuck longer than you used to. Back in the day, people knew what they wanted, and that's all it was to do.
Hmm.
Nowadays, you don't have to go to school, so that's a whole different obstacle to go around.
Yeah.
You could do anything, and I think it's confusing
Yeah.
because
Wow.
people don't know where they belong. You have people on the outside that judge you for literally just standing there. I don't
Hmm.
like the way you stand. He got bad intentions.
We judge because of the hoodies, right? Because we don't understand it, we judge it. Like, dude, it's hot. You not hot? Why are you wearing a hoodie? But we're judging.
Literally.
We're judging. Yeah, that's good. So, what advice would you give? What should
Uh,
we be doing?
honestly, take a step back and live in reality more. I think that's something that I've had to teach myself, that the real world doesn't revolve around what you're seeing through your phones or your TV. At the end of the day, the best experiences and lessons that you'll have are taking place in real life. And I think
Mhm.
that's something that we envy from you guys' generation. The only opinions you had to worry about were the people that were around you. Nowadays, you make a decision to become successful, people treat you like a demon.
Hmm.
You get milk. You look at some celebrities that you might follow or whatever. You look under their comments, the stuff people say to them,
Wild.
just because they decided to become better.
Hmm.
Now jealousy is highlighted. Just people's natural born hatred is highlighted. So I would just say step outside of that realm and focus on living real life. Get closer to God. Start reading your Bibles. Get more grounded and connected with your partners. Have real conversations with real people.
Yeah.
But that's really what I would say. Just engage in reality more. because it's easy to get lost in the other place.
Yeah, especially we spend a lot of time on social media, but that's not really a reality. That's a edited, scripted lights camera action version of it. And
Exactly.
so I love it where you said to really connect with real people, and real people that share similar values and have that positivity, not sitting under people who are negative Nellies and Debbie Downers. Like, we don't want to be around them, those people that are using devices that you see is spiraling them into a hole.
Right.
You want to choose the other side. So it really is about choice. So so I know you mentioned therapy is one of the ways in which you are supporting your mental health, now as you walked a little bit further into adulthood. But what are some day-to-day things that you do that help to support your mental well-being, to keep you out of the depressive states and to keep you
Right.
from being anxious?
Um. So I kind of have like a set routine of things that I like to do. When I
Mhm.
get up in the morning, the first things I do are I have an emotional tracker. Like,
Mm.
going if I leave for work at 5:30 in the morning, the first thing I do when I get to work is I track my emotions. I have a app that I use that can put names and definitions so you can understand what you're feeling more.
Mhm.
I like to track my emotions and write down journal entries about why I might be feeling this way. That way, as you go along, you can understand more where I am affects how I feel.
Yeah.
So I do that. I read my Bible first. I do devotionals and I do Bible plans, and I just read. So I like to read every day and just put myself in positivity, because I think if you don't start your day on a positive note, every day would be a bad day.
Yeah. Oh, listen, you over here teaching us. You teaching us. Because I think a lot of people just get up and just start.
Yeah,
They just get up and they start. And one of the things that I talk about is like this body scan. Like, so before I get up out of the bed, I like to do a body scan. It's like the nurse in me. I do the head to toe. Like, okay, how does my head feel? How does my neck feel? How do my arms feel? Like, and I'm just literally checking on myself. And I
definitely,
love that you have this app that is gauging your emotions. And so you're not just waiting for modern technology to say, oh, you're feeling depressed because of your temperature rate or whatever. You are now adding value to that. You're now saying, well, this is how I'm feeling. And you're putting pen to paper and you're writing out, you're journaling how it is that you're actually feeling in that moment. That is now coinciding with the data, right? So it's now aligning up, and now you've got this awareness. And I think a lot of people go through life and they don't have the awareness.
definitely. And I think that makes it hard for people to connect with other people. Because to kind of add on to that point, me and Kayla, we have synced our apps with each other. So when she's
Nice.
feeling away, she can enter her emotion and it'll show on my phone, so we can start a conversation about why you might
Mm,
be feeling that way. I
mm,
just think it's easy to get disconnected from people.
yeah.
And I can't say I love you if I won't check on you. I got to make sure you're
Mm. My boy, come with it. I'm telling you guys, that is so profound. And it makes my heart happy as an auntie.
good. Yeah,
It makes my heart happy to know that my baby girl is taken care of, right? Because you've put in the work for yourself.
right.
And because you've put in the work for yourself, now like you can check on her. And I love that you said that, the apps are in sync. So she can be off at her workplace and you're getting the alert to say, oh, Kayla's feeling this kind of a way. So now you get yourself geared up to say, okay, well, let me take care of my stuff, make certain that I'm good. Cause I know when I get home, when I get to her, I've got to support her in this way.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
That is good, good. Right. I'm taking mental notes as I'm like, when I get in my relationship, we're gonna sync our apps. We got, we always want to write the list and say, this is who I'm praying for. This is the type of individual I
Yeah,
want to partner up with. Baby, I want somebody who is aware of themselves and their emotions and their mental health. And then they now have the, because that's what it does. It literally gives you a sneak peek. And now you're able to prepare your capacity. So
definitely.
gone are the days where you walk in the house and you don't know what you're going to encounter. You don't know if she's happy, if she's sad, if she you don't even know. So you've taken that away because now you're in sync. And yes, it's through an app. It's still about being in sync.
Definitely.
That's good. I like that. I like that. But it's definitely something that I think we as individuals, we as people in a corporate society where we have to live, we have to commune with one another. As much as we would love to ostracize ourselves and sit in the room, people need people.
Regardless of how much you think you don't, you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm glad you said that. I literally say to her, it has to be once a week. People love saying they hate people,
Hmm.
but imagine how it would feel to not have anybody else around.
Yeah.
It's like that's easy to say until you have conversation with somebody. Because okay, I know we were talking about men's mental health. To kind of segue that point, something that really helps me get a better gauge and because I feel like I need to be humble at least once a day. I
Hmm.
always trust God to put me in a situation that's like if you're reading a story about like Job or something like that, you got to be put through the fire to have your faith tested.
Yeah.
What I like to do is I like to have conversations with strangers and hear their stories because I feel like it always humbles me when I think I'm going through something or not even to invalidate my because everybody's story matters. But when I
Yeah.
hear people's circumstances, it helps me step back and say it could be worse. You need to acknowledge the blessings that you have from God rather than be upset about what you don't have. So
Hmm.
I tell her all the time. I had a conversation with a guy. He's a super nice guy. He cleans the hospital I work at. He did 20 years in prison. The nicest guy I've ever met.
Wow.
So I literally asked him. I was like, "What is it that keeps you so encouraged, especially with everything that you've been through?" He said, "Just having faith in God and understanding that everything I went through was to the betterment of getting me to where I am today." And
Hmm.
he talks about like being in solitary confinement, even just away from general population in prison. Everybody thinks they hate people until you have to be alone.
Hmm.
The hard part about that is when you by yourself, now you got to deal with yourself, and
Hmm.
that's not easy, especially for men.
And that's what the real problem is. So people are saying, oh, I hate people, but
That's
it's
crazy
not
statement.
really people. It's just introspective. There's
Exactly.
something about yourself that you hate, and you're projecting that on to others. Like they're doing something that's triggering something inside of yourself.
Exactly.
So I love that point to like a solitary confinement when you are now withdrawn, or even being in prison, being away from your people,
Right.
your family, your loved ones, your support system. Now you've got to learn to live life without them.
Right.
So I love it. So if we had to wrap up this conversation into some key points, some key things that you really would like to drive home, what would be some of your lasting words?
Um, I think to kind of be on theme of everything we've been talking about, I would say like a message to men in general would be to focus on being okay with being exactly who you are. I think a lot of time men are raised to be made of stone instead of being human. I
Hmm.
think it's important that men understand that it's okay to immerse yourself into community. It's okay to trust people. It's okay to have intimate conversations with your partner and not get upset.
Yeah.
I would just say be okay with taking better care of yourself and you have to express yourself. Most men aren't raised to be expressive, so it's difficult. So I would say just focus on loving yourself more. I would tell people to live more reality and stay so much out of paying attention to what people want you to see rather than what reality is. And just take yourself more serious. I think when you are in a depressive state or you're feeling anxious, it's easy to let yourself go in a sense and not care so much about where you end up. And that leads to suicidal thoughts and things of that nature. So I would say just take yourself more serious and have a more in tune understanding of who you are and what you need to get through your day to day. And once you know that, I feel like life will start to balance itself out. Because the bottom line of something I learned over the last year, we all struggle with perfectionism, and that's impossible. The best thing you can do is understand that life is always going to be a learning process. You learn something and you maintain for the rest of your life. That's all you can do.
That's right. I
Because
love it.
shout out to my father in law. All you have is today. Just focus on right now.
Yes, yes. Good, good stuff. Listen, you guys got to make certain you stay connected to this young man. He is speaking the truth, he is bringing the power. We've got his Instagram handle. Now, him and my niece do this thing. They got their thing on TikTok, and y'all already on YouTube.
Yes, man.
Y'all already on YouTube. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Support young people doing the right thing. They may not be doing it your way, but they are doing it their way. So make certain you check them out on YouTube. Y'all get to see my baby girl. You
Mhm.
get to see my nephew in love. They're doing the thing. And support. Support is a universal measure. So we want to make certain that we are supporting the youth and letting them soar how they see fit. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for being my special guest today as we talk about men's mental health. Hang out for just a second. Let me give these people their marching orders.
Yeah.
Listen, that was so good. Did you I hope y'all did. Please make certain you check out my niece and my nephew in love. You check out their TikTok and their YouTube channel. They're doing some great things over there. I'm over there peeking. I'm over there peeking, seeing what they're doing, seeing what I can learn and what I can apply to my channel because I'm trying to be great like they are. So you all, I hope that this was an enlightening conversation that you can go back to your young people, that you can go back to your men that's within your life, and you can have this as a conversation starter for support of them, of their mental health as we support ourselves in our own mental health journey. Because as we spoke here today, as people, we do need other people. So, you all have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all again on the next episode of the Black Girl Encourage Her.